We're live in Laguna Beach with an incredible guest today. I'm really excited to have this gentleman on. Everyone out there will enjoy hearing about him. He's an entrepreneur, very successful businessman, and he owns it. And that's why I wanted him on this show. T.W. Mock, welcome to the show. It's great to see you, and look forward to chatting today with you.
Likewise, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So you've had like rocket ship growth, and yet you downplay any talk of limits or target goals. Can you share more about your mentality on the limits of just everyone's potential?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. It's been an interesting conversation in my life about when enough is enough and when do you stop. It's funny, everybody sets these financial goals in their life and they hit them. Believe it or not, it's a very short-lived experience. So you hit them. Of course, there's benefits from them, but the challenges tend to fall apart, meaning that the goals that you set, you constantly got to continue moving the target. So for me, it's just been an evolution of keeping me engaged mentally and what keeps me engaged. So I continuously move the targets higher and higher, and just continuously, each company's got its own growth pattern. It's got its own purpose. Some have more meaning to me than others, but most of them are very personal to me. They're like my kids. So, I take them under my wings and build that massive friction quickly.
So when you were 18 and you gracefully were removed from the house with your stepfather and mom that were living there, and tell us about when that moment happened. What was the trigger saying, okay, I'm out on my own, I got to make it happen? And walk us through that progression of, okay, you're 18, you're starting to build log homes, and just take everyone through a little bit of your history, because I think it's fascinating what you've been through. And I think it's so inspirational that people can realize that you could be whoever you want. It's just inside your head.
It's funny. It happened at an early age for me, meaning 18. So, I went from living a life of extravagance to living on nothing. My parents gave me $200. And so for me, it was, actually, I can remember the moment. I was laying on my brother's couch eating a bean burrito from a local gas station. And I just said, man, this isn't the way I want it to be. So that was a defining moment for me to actuate. And that was a call to action for me. So, I realized that money was a tool at that age, and I wanted to to create more and create better opportunities for myself. So, and I realized that nobody else is going to do it for me. So that was a interesting transition at 18.
So you get into building homes, log homes, which is pretty cool, and you go overseas and do it. Why did you decide to go overseas? How did that come about for you?
It came about because nobody else wanted to go. And at the time I was 20 when that particular contract happened, and in South Korea, and nobody was willing to go that would build these houses. So I just raised my hand, and I historically have followed that suit all the way through my entrepreneurial career. So if everybody's running out of the situation, I'm usually running into it. And I found that I can typically monetize and create massive value inside of those environments.
So at that point, and after that, you go, and what I think is fascinating, I'd love to hear is you end up deciding to come back to the States. You got into real estate, which obviously that's my love and passion, is commercial real estate. That's all I know. And tell me about, so you come back to the States, you get involved in real estate, and then go from there.
Well, yeah, coming back in, it was following a tragic accident in my world. Basically at 23, the year before my son was born, I was in a skiing accident, broke my fib tib and had a fatty embolism. So I was clinically dead for 7 days. And my son came shortly after that. So it basically changed my entire demeanor about purpose and direction and what I needed to do, and not traveling so much. So took me to Houston. Basically, we worked for a few general contractors there, and then basically opened our own business there. We built data centers. When doing data centers weren't cool, that was the thing, and we started building them out in closets and in putting stacked servers in closets for companies, and when people were just getting into the IT world, and that kind of grew to the point to where we did some very significant data centers for some Fortune 50 companies around the country, and ultimately sold that company in 2004. Was bought out by my partners. Ultimately, it was a bad marriage at the end, because I was the primary owner, the majority owner, and ultimately ended up in the hospital. They sued me for control of the company, and I never went back to my company. Ended up selling out of it, and ultimately invested heavily in real estate in Arizona. That transition to fast forward that to '07, where we started getting hit very quickly on loan to value ratios. And basically, I had semi-retired at 6 million in debt free. That was the number. And ultimately, I had burned all my cash keeping my buildings in LTV, and that's how I ended up in Iraq. So that went from one dynamic to another, and then basically flew into Baghdad, and then that kind of went from there. But we've always stayed heavily in the real estate market. It's always been asset based. I'm not an intangible guy. I'm a very tangible investor when it comes to appreciation and value add. Very much, we're still in the real estate market today. I mean, we're buying, and we're buying. We typically don't like to sell, but I'll sell in the right moment. I'm a buyer and holder, so I'm building generational wealth, as I call it. Everybody says, "Well, you're kind of a hoarder when it comes to real estate," and I said, "Well, that's not." I don't know. Don't every book's got a different cover on it, right? So I said, "Don't judge me. That's the way I do it," and I tend to like it because my asset base is secure. So I move on that.
It's interesting. Like, no one sits in your shoes, like no one sits in my shoes when you have to make decisions. And so it's when you got all these outside forces criticizing you, it is what it is. With partners, you have a similar work ethic like I do. I know you work a lot, and you have an incredible work ethic. I love that about you, because I'm the same way. Is it hard to have partners because when you have partners, they can't keep up with you at the same level? Is that always a challenge?
It's always a challenge, and I've had some pretty interesting business mentors with me here recently that have been in my ear, certain things, my expectations, because our 27-year-old son owns 49% of this company, and in the beginning, frictionable using him as a partner. But yes, there's always been friction with partners because I'll do whatever it takes to get there. Meaning that if it takes us working 18 hours to get it done, then I'll do 19, whatever it takes. So I historically will outpace everyone around me, and that creates friction or a little bit of distension on my part. I expect everyone else downline to do at least, if not more, than I'm doing, because we compensate and pay them extremely well, and they're paid to carry, and I end up carrying the load. So that always jades me a little bit when I get into those dogfights. But ultimately looking for my leadership in this, they want this gray hair to make very good decisions, right, and navigate through some very frictionable moments. So it's been an interesting transition for me in that space, especially dealing with partners. Now you've got family involved. Now I've got my son involved, and our son, and that's he's 27, right? So what is my expectation of a 27-year-old? I know when I was 27, I knew what my goals were in my roles. So, he's got a different delivery. He's got a different way of doing things, and I respect that now. And it took me a minute to understand it. I was trying to mold my son into me, and that's not what I needed to do. I needed to let him fly. I mean, he has the same end result. He just has a different vehicle on how he gets there, and it's a different flavor. So I'm not a micromanager by any means. Even in the partnerships, I do expect my partners to carry their load for their value. So other than that, it's just managing expectations. And I manage mine very well by simply saying I don't have any. if we all agree that this is what we're doing and this is, this is how our, either whatever the type of agreement it is, business structure, then I expect everyone to do the same. That's real simple. So at the end of the day, meeting those expectations and managing them sometimes create their own friction. So to answer your question, that was a long version of it, but yes, I found that to be interesting because partners historically don't work well in my world because investment partners are great, but operational partners, I always end up beating that up. So, beating them up from a standpoint of, they want to take the weekends off or they want to take, a month off or they want to do this or that scheduled or what have you, will be in the middle of massive friction and they just simply won't carry their weight. That doesn't sit well with me.
So Andre joins the business and he's got 49%. And he's from obviously a generation different than us. You and I think we're the same age. And so Andre's in the business and obviously they grew up in a tech world and texting and all these things. And you and I grew up in handwriting letters and all that good stuff. Is it challenging to understand, like, okay, he has a different perception of life and business, and you're a hard worker, you have this incredible work ethic, you've been successful, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, how do I not instill my work ethic and expectations on him, but I know I'm TW Mock and my way has proven over time and persistence that success. How do you manage that? Because that's got to be challenging when your son comes into the business.
It is, but I was asked this question at a speaking event in Colorado a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was, what will I leave my kids? And I said, well, I don't understand the question. We have two kids, a 20 and a 27, male and female. And they said, well, monetarily, what are you leaving your kids? And I said, well, one, it's none of your business. But I said, but secondly, I'm leaving them nothing. And they just kind of looked at me and they said, well, that's kind of rude. And I said, well, no, the best gifts that I can leave my kids is one, showing them how to love their mother. And then secondly, teaching them how to hunt. And I don't mean that in a literal sense. I mean them how to survive in the business world, because honestly, everybody outside the door honestly doesn't care. It's not their problem. It's our problem. It's your problem. So teaching them how to own their environments is more the gift I can give them. It's never about money. Which is kind of interesting. The default setting is we win because our purpose drives massive value in the marketplace, and that creates the money. But if you don't have fundamental basics on the front end, you'll never get to achieve the other side of that coin that you're trying to achieve financially. So for me, it's, I look at money as a tool. It has massive value in my life for sure, but that is just not my purpose. And I don't want my kids to ever understand that's the purpose. It's a byproduct of what you, so just be good at what you do and don't be good, be great. When you get to good, then achieve to great. You'll never be perfect, but always be better than you were yesterday. So just very simple things that kind of keep them in check.
Explain to everyone. So you end up going to Iraq, and obviously there's conflict and strife going on over there, which took a lot of guts for you to go over there. What was the opportunity? What did you do over there? What created the success? Explain to everyone, because I think it's an amazing story to go over to Iraq for 9 years running businesses. Like, give us a deep dive. Like, let's pull back the curtain and talk about it.
Oh, and the deep dive was, I was about 45 days from bankruptcy, and just simply didn't want to go down that road. So what took me there was an opportunity from a friend of mine that called and said, "You've got to come see this. It's the Wild Wild West." So I literally flew into Amman, Jordan, and I talked about this the other day, but drove through the triangle of death, they call it. I had no idea. I was naive. I was a CNN watching fool. I had no idea that we drove from Amman to Baghdad. That was some very treacherous idea. I was a tourist. I was taking it all in, didn't have any idea what was going on. I mean, here I am, an American, just kind of waddling through Iraq in the middle of a war. So, actual stupidity is probably what, luckily I didn't have any bearing on it, or I probably wouldn't have done it. I've seen the news. I knew Sadr City was on fire, and, there were some places in Mosul that were hot, but, otherwise, we're good. So I just rolled in and lived in a 20-foot sea container when I got there. And basically, that's where I started in the red zone amongst the people of Iraq, and ultimately put my hand up for a contract on VBC, Victory Base, to supply the overhead distribution, which 3 contractors had failed previously. I really had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And of course, you get one shot with the Department of Defense. So, I didn't have a contract. I had to be escorted on the base even to get to the contract summation. And you just go through all these objectives. But when your goal is, when you're so committed to achieving your goal, you realize and you accept the failures that you're going to have along the way, so that doesn't derail that mission. So I basically got very purpose driven on what we were doing and what we needed to do and how we needed to do it, and basically was awarded the contract, fulfilled it in 38 days. American Express became my partner. Basically, I mean, they rode with me hard. I can't even. I mean, because I was literally scraping pennies together to make it all work. So, we just went to Miami, basically bought the overhead distribution that I needed to include the fuses, the inline fuses, which I had never done this before. I just became an understudy quickly and got the right experts around me and fulfilled the contract. And that started Dana Air Marine. That started my logistics firm. And ultimately, we controlled probably 60% of the logistics in between Baghdad, Basra, Iraq, which is central Iraq, and then southern Iraq. And then, of course, that scaled into a security firm that I invested in. And then ultimately that was sold to Garda, which is the largest private military in the world. And, that's circa, that was sold in 13, but circa 2010, basically started Dana Energy Iraq, which is a $4 billion oil and gas company. So we took Neighbors Drilling into Iraq. We drilled the first hole post-war Iraq. So got heavily into the oil and gas sector in just providing a wide array of field services for the oil and gas companies, the majors that were moving in there post-war. So it is, I hate to call it an opportunistic application, but luck tends to play a very big role in a few things, but it also takes massive preparation to understand when luck is staring you in the face. So, I was in an opportunity where I had taken a base in southern Iraq for DoD. I was in the right position. I was actually losing money on the DoD contract, but then oil and gas came along, and that basically turned it all around. I guess to circle it back, I mean, I look at it now, I reflect back on it from everything that we've done over the years, to include all the oil we moved out of Africa. And I mean, we moved, close to $500 billion in oil from Africa into Rotterdam, into the Mediterranean, and around the world. That came by default. It was a good friend of mine that introduced me to the business, named Oscar Wyatt. He owned El Paso Energy, and he was doing the food for oil program with Saddam. And he needed a vessel, and that's how I got into the oil trading business. And I mean, it's happenstance. Everything was just kind of moving, and then understanding that there was a massive disconnect in the market. And I said, well, no, we can do this better. So we just provide a better service and provide transparency with that service. And that created the market. That created our opportunities in the market just by providing the services different.
Were you worried about your safety being in a war zone and getting up every day and saying, okay, I got to make this happen. I have opportunities. I'm going to take advantage. However, all around me is strife, and I got to leave the sea container, to go and live my life. Tell me about that. What was that like every day? Like knowing like, hey, I'm in a war zone and I got to deal with this, and I'm trying to, really develop a career out here.
Well, that's interesting, because I struggled coming home, and it took me a few years to figure out truly what the problem was. A lot of things changed. In 2010, the rules of engagement changed. My position changed with Department of Defense, and the U.S. entities I was working with inside the U.S. government, where their rules of engagement were no longer acceptable. I was an Iraqi-based company. I could engage things that they couldn't. So they came to me, and the transition happened really in my life. It happened in 10, where I became a hunter and not the hunted. So they asked me to do things for them that they may or may not have been able to directly engage. I'm a Texan. I just happen to be an Iraqi company, so the base commanders that I were dealing with at the time were Texan as well. So we connected well, and ultimately became some of my best friends later on in life. But, the feeling I've never found something that has brought me back to that moment of feeling alive. And it almost destroyed my life. It's almost like it's got to be like an addiction. I don't really have an addiction per se of anything. But I know the disconnect that I felt because I no longer felt alive when I came home. So you step off the plane in Iraq, and you know that you're hunted. You know that. I mean, you can name them. There's a plenty of them out there that want to kill you, and ultimately you're just a little more evil than they are, And I have not found that kind of energy in myself. And this is me talking about a weakness in my life, because I've got everything in the world that everybody would perceive as awesomeness, right? And I'm sitting back here, and it means nothing to me other than my wife and my kids, right? It absolutely means it really doesn't. And so I look at it that you've got to find that purpose. And ultimately, I was looking all over the place for something that I could not find here, because they just simply didn't have, the threat wasn't here like that. So, did a cold turkey drop, and as I call it, and basically left the Middle East. There's only twice in my life I thought I was going to die. And I've been blown up. I've been shot. I've been, you name it, I've been through it, and I've been blown up more than I've been shot. That's for sure. The reality is it came down to one situation in Libya that changed everything for me. I mentally gave up in that fight, and I was prepared to die, and I knew it was time to walk away. But it was actually my daughter that saved my life. It wasn't me. It just gave me the power to engage it. So
How did she save your life?
it was me getting on a flight, going back in, and she just made me promise her that I was coming home. So I had let her down in that situation. We had three team members that were there with me, and two of them, I was the third, and two of them were down, meaning that they had been taken, and I was the last one basically. Yeah, it's a profound experience to go through that moment where you're sitting in a chair, your feet are tied to it. You know that this is it. I mean, you're going down a road, and it's not going to end well. And ultimately, they hadn't tied my hands to the chair yet, and they had left the weapons on the table. And I remember that conversation vividly, like it was right now. And it was just me having a conversation myself, seeing my daughter, and I said, "No, it's not going to happen like this today." So ultimately, I'm still here, they're not. So I'll leave it there for the sake of the conversation. But I knew at that time it was time for me to leave. It was time for me to walk away, because I had mentally allowed myself to go down a road, and I had never done that before. So my conditioning, I was just worn out, tired. So ultimately, we ended up selling what we had left, meaning the companies. I ended up selling out of what we had over there and what I had, and came home, and struggled for a few years to really find my place, and find my direction after coming home, because I really didn't need to do anything, but I was miserable sitting at home. I was just miserable. I was a miserable individual.
Were you, when you came home, did you say, were you looking and saying, how can I be fulfilled? I have plenty of money. I had success. I gotta really bring my family together. I've been away from them for 9 years. It must have been challenging to come home and really figure out, like, who am I? What's my purpose? How do I fulfill my life? I got plenty of money, but it's not making me happy.
Yeah, that's one of the most profound conversations you can ever have with a man in a mirror. You have zero reasons that if from society's perspective, you have just zero reasons to complain. you can touch whatever you want to touch financially. You can do whatever you want to do, and yet you can't get out of bed and get out of your own way. And I've been through a multitude of psych evals following this and that and the other thing. And, I've never been diagnosed depressed. I've never been diagnosed anything other than, for the lack of a better word, just a damn machine. So, you just keep going. But ultimately, for me, I had my purpose and lost my direction. I really didn't have anything to tie to that was valid. And it left me in a state of not really liking the man in the mirror anymore. I didn't like who I saw. So that became one of the biggest problems in my life.
Has your relationship with money changed since, you had a lot of success and you came back home and realized that, obviously your relationship with your wife is extremely important to you and your family? What does money look like now compared to when you were really grinding in Iraq and before then?
Money looks like money is a tool. I mean, I don't make money to spend it. I make money to make more money. And now it's become a game for me. And it's about empowerment. It's also about, bringing guys, bringing teammates, bringing partners that I engage. It's actually bringing value to them. So, I look at it as saying, if I can impact somebody and if I can help a situation out, then I will, of course. But money just provides better choices for me and mine. And hopefully with any luck, we won't burn it up before I die. So I say that loosely, but highly unlikely that'll happen. However, we were in a crazy economy. So I'm looking at it. I'm looking at money as a simple tool moving forward, because this is going to sound bad. I mean, you can become a consumer in these kinds of markets right now, and ultimately, good, bad, or indifferent, I will. It's just a default setting. The opportunities to acquire a large piece of real estate are going to be there. I know that's coming, and we're positioning well around that. So again, it's that choice. It provides you that fuel to move down a road and in building out a small real estate empire for people I don't even know yet. I mean, that's kind of where I go with it. I do all of this stuff for everybody else. It's not necessarily directly related to me anymore. So of course I do benefit from it, but ultimately it's for kids and grandkids that I don't even know. So in 501(c)s that we're a part of, or charity, that we end up giving a vast majority of it away, which is very interesting because it actually is profound for a lot of people around me. They're like, I don't understand. Well, you don't need to. It's okay, and we just go down that road. But my wife and I are both, our son, business owner, he's also involved in that too. I mean, we enjoy taking care of things. We enjoy making people's lives better. So it's given us a very interesting sense of purpose, especially coming from my world, back into that. So people say that, hey, well, you get a little bit of success. People try to cover that up giving. And I said, no, I'm not trying to cover anything up. I know that I have the power to make an impact. So to answer your question, I mean, it's more about making an impact on people that otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity.
Journaling's been a part of your life. Are you still journaling?
Every day.
So it's an amazing tool to be able to kind of encapsulate your thoughts, your emotions, ideas you have, and being along. How's it helped you in life? Like, explain to everyone, when you journal, what does it provide you?
Well, my journals, and everybody give me grief because I carry 3 notebooks. And my task list are written on one piece of paper every day, only one, right? And I put that in my pocket, believe it or not. And I don't move right to left. I start and finish, and I achieve. And that's where I think the difference happens. And everything's run for me and on blocks of time during the day. So my entire life is blocked out from literally from I go off the grid from 6 to 8 in the morning, but I usually get up around 4:30 or 5, and I do my routine. And that's historically where I've journaled from the night before, and I'll finish the journaling in the morning with a clearer thought. My mornings are usually when my head is very, very clear from compression, so I'm able to journal some very clear thoughts and insight. So what journals have done for me over my life is kept me accountable to me. Also shown some very dark times in my life when in the Middle East when things weren't going well. My wife has gotten through my journals now and kind of caught up to my life, which is interesting because I never would let anybody read them. Now everybody wants to turn them into a book. But what it does do is it looks back in our life and we talk about moments and milestones of massive friction. I am not a guy that lives in the past, but I am a guy that learns from the past. So I'll go back and break check myself when I see things going on, or if I have massive compression in my own head, I'll go back and reflect and I'll read and I'll remember the man that literally thought that, he was going to die, or the man that had risked everything and we were upside down. One particular time in my life, we had the oil business turn upside down and I was upside down 250 million over everything. And at the end of the day, I remember my wife looking at me and saying, "You're going to be all right. I guarantee it." I mean, you always come up with a solution. I'm sitting back here going, "Not this time. I think I've truly screwed this up." So it's interesting to look at your life and understand that you are the author. You are the author of your chapters, and that's, to me, those are the chapters of my life. And I hope that my great grandkids someday can understand who their great grandfather was, by just simply looking at the journals and reading them and understanding the man that I was. And hopefully it leaves a good mark.
When your wife goes back and reads some of the journal entries you have in there, can she reflect back and say, okay, I can understand what he was going through at that moment in time when maybe she couldn't see the lens you were looking at, and she can reflect back and say, okay, now I get it. Now I really understand who he is and what he went through.
Man, it's a journal. The journals opened her eyes a lot, especially to my mindset, because I didn't really talk to anybody about the compression. I basically talked to myself through my journals, and there's some dark stuff in there. There's some stuff in my life in certain areas where, my wife and I almost burned our life down in 2010 and 11. And, I was, my response to that was very compressive, meaning in the Middle East. I look back at it now and reflect. I didn't want to take my own life, so I put myself at risk everywhere. I was just so over it. Just so over dealing with just life, and it had nothing to do with money. So fast forward to this year, she's just, basically she's come full circle. One of my commanders passed away. We went to a funeral at Fort Hood. She absolutely got it when we were walking through the building. There were some of the biggest commanders in the world that commanded the free world through certain conflicts over the last 15 years that were there. And, I'm getting nods and shakes and, "Hey, great to see you." And she's like, how do you know him? And what was going on here? And what was, she started questioning everything. So fast forward to, I was sick last year for the most part, the entire year from a poisoning that happened during a hurricane. And so I'm laid up and my body's just aching, and I go to the chiropractor, my neck's bothering me, and the chiropractor says, well, when did you fracture your neck? And I was like, I know when that was, but she didn't know that. And, and I'm sitting in a chair, and the chiropractor went to basically adjust my neck, and it triggered something I haven't been in 9 years. It scared me to death. My reaction was aggressive to him, and it scared her, scared me. I was quiet for a couple of days. What's going on in your head? I have just gone back to a place that I have not been in 9 years. And I said, I didn't want to ever go back there. I don't ever want to be that guy again. And it scared me to know, for her to know the true man that I was. So, and it takes good men to become more evil than the evil they're dealing with to deal with it. But unfortunately, it leaves a mark. And I never wanted her to know that guy. She knew that the guy had the capability, but she hadn't seen it. So I had to open up a lot about my life. And I got very honest with her about a lot of things that maybe she didn't need to know about, but she did. I felt like she deserved to know after we've been married 20 years in September. We're together 22. So, I mean, how long can you keep BSing your significant other, and I live in a world of transparency, and here I was lying to her, not lying to her, but not being honest about it. And I was looking at the man in the mirror going, no, I don't like the feeling I have, being disingenuous with her and not really telling her the whole story. So we laid it all out there. And I remember the day that happened, and she's sitting on our counter in our kitchen. And I said, honey, you got to talk to me. I mean, you got to communicate. And she was looking at the floor, wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't, all the body language was telling me this was not going to end well. And she looked up at me, and she said two things. She goes, one, I know why you walk the way you do. I know why you carry yourself. This also answers a lot of questions that I had over the years. But more so than that, it turns me on. And I said, what does that mean? I was expecting this big train wreck, and she was like, no, it turns me on. And I was like, well, I'm going to just leave it there, and we're just going to keep moving. Right. So we're not going to drill into it anymore. But she just said, look, you're an amazing man. You just don't see it. Right. And at the end of the day, what you did and what you had to do is what you had to do. And I said, yeah, most of them I had to do. And then there's a couple of I did. Right. That became very principled to me. So that's where I get hung up, because that's the evil side of being evil. And I just, I never wanted her to see that. So to answer your question, the journals have brought all of that full circle, right? So here we are, right? And now I'm telling her in my own words, and we've got people around me in our companies now. Or one of our house counselors I met in Basra, Iraq, he was 15% of his class at West Point. He literally he's in the office right now, running around in here. He's with me for the last AC with DOS and Department of State. We've been up there doing that tap dance, and and Daniel, the D of this company, wherever it's backwards, but the D in the company is a soldier that was with me on the Iranian border and got blown up. He saved my life. So, everything now has a lot more meaning to her. She understands the dynamics of how my head's thinking, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you mentioned you didn't like looking at the man in the mirror. How do you feel now with the man I'm looking at today? Because you're quite impressive, and when I look at you and I read about you, it's so inspirational, because it's multiple comeback stories, it's solving challenges, it's being present every day and doing the work that you talk about. I'm the same way. And how do you feel about yourself now after all this has happened and you and your wife have this great connection? How do you feel?
Man, I mean, look, I am a simple country boy at the end of the day, and that's the interesting piece of this equation. I actually like the man in the mirror now, and I trust him. I trust his decisions. There for a minute, I didn't. I wasn't sure if I was making right decisions, and I was getting paralysis by analysis and everything that's wrong with business. Right? That business owners go down and they start questioning themselves, and I've not been one that, I've always been a fact-based information guy, make a decision and move and be accountable for it. It's very militaristic in that approach. But for me, it was, now there's nothing in the world that I can't achieve. I mean, there's just nothing. I mean, I don't feel like Elon Musk by any means. I mean, that guy's certainly setting the bar really high for folks. But, I do look at it being a guy that literally barely made it out of high school, there's no formal college education, put his head down and did the work. And actually, I know everybody's saying this right now in the world, but if I can do it, you can do it. Well, no. Let me back this up and say, I was in special education all the way through, right? But I've got a genius IQ, and I'm just going down a road where, so many people have counted me out in my life, and I actually like that position. I've become very comfortable in it. I like being
I like being the underdog.
Lack of respect. Well, I've always been the underdog, but people tell me I can't play that game anymore. Right? I can't say that anymore. So even my lawyers have told me, said, "Hey, you're not the underdog.
No, you're definitely not the underdog.
You're the guy
anymore.
that goes in the back." Yeah, no, but he's like, no, that ship has sailed. So you got to come up with a new terminology here. So, it really comes down to, understanding the dynamics of me and understanding my power and understanding how to harness that. because I know a lot of very wealthy people in my life, and I've got some great friends that are extremely wealthy, and I look at their misery, I look at their faults, and I'm not judging them. I'm saying that I don't want to be like that. I mean, I know guys that they have kids my kids' age, and they don't even talk to me. I couldn't imagine not having them in my life, and it's all over money, and it's all over different things. So no, I just try to be better than I was yesterday, and that's the man that I am today, and I live my truth. So I'm happy with that, man, and that's it's taken me a long time to get there.
Was mindset mean to you? Because obviously, to make this transformation, it had to start with your mind. What does that mean to you?
Man, it's all the way through my life. I've had a massive ability to control my thoughts, and it's funny because I say this a lot in the business world. 2% of your time on the problem, 98% of your time on the solution, and it'll change the way you think about things. It'll put you in a positive mindset. And believe it or not, the mindset has every ability to actuate. So it changes this. Our son raced motocross for 16 years, and I use this analogy a lot with him. And when he was racing, if you see the tree, you're going to hit the tree on a bike, right? If you see the other rider, you're going to hit the other rider. So ride through him, ride your race. Same thing in business, and it's all mindset, right? If you focus on the problem, you're going to get hung up on that problem, and you're going to stay there, and you're going to fail to make a decision. The worst thing that happens in business, in my opinion, is being you got a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners that they run into problems and friction in business. They haven't managed their own expectations correctly, so they dwell on it, and by the time they get finished dwelling on it, they're months down the road. All of this carnage has happened in the process. Historically, I'll make a decision quickly, and that gets my people unstable real quick because I'm very quick to make a decision. I'm very quick to pivot. I'm very quick to actuate. In some things I'll slow things down to go fast, and that gets people a little bit uneasy because I've got a reputation of making quick decisions. And then if I don't like it, or I don't like what I'm seeing or reading in the transaction of the deal or the compression, I'll just slow it all down. I mean, slow it down to where it's in slow motion, and it goes Barney style, as I call it. So we get everybody on the same page. And believe it or not, it is absolutely a conditioning of the mind. Everybody has the ability to do it. I historically don't like to be non-productive, so I don't let my mind go down a non-productive role. When I do that, it is usually, you can tell, because I'll check out for a minute, and that's just me doing a reset. But other than that, I mean, it's conditioning that happens at an early age, or can happen at any age, and you just simply get into a routine of doing this. So for mindset, for me, is mission critical. It's as equal to or greater than my heart or an artery in my body, because without it, I become an entitled, I guess, an entitled socialist. That's probably a better way to put it. Not to get politically, but I mean, I'm sitting back here thinking
That's
everybody
that's
knows
a
me,
that's
so
a
I'm
very
just not going to
interesting
worry about it.
statement.
Yeah, I don't mean to go down a political road. I'm just saying that
I know, I
so
know.
many people in the world today, they mindset to call me. But no, people have this mindset that everybody owes them something, and nobody owes me anything, right? Nobody owes them anything. Now, if I owe you something, I'll take care of it and I'll deal with that. But you're not entitled to me because of me, right? So you didn't do this, so why are you asking for it? I don't know. I get a weird response to stupid questions. So if that makes any sense at all.
You are a master at finding opportunities in different spaces. That's one thing I've noticed about you, which I think is pretty cool. So you get home and you guys start TAD recovery.
Mhm.
What was the idea in the head that said, okay, the insurance companies aren't fulfilling a gap. I see an opportunity. I might not know the business, but I'm pretty damn smart. I'm persistent. I know how to build a team. I know how to lead. We're going to do this. Like, put me side by side with you in that moment.
Man, it started out as it started out as an insurance company really pissing me off, for lack of a better word, and just him saying you didn't maintain policy compliance, and I was, whoa, what is that? And then they told me, and I was like, wow, well, I have a lot of relationships that own a lot of real estate, so I start talking to a couple of my primaries, and basically they're, the risk mitigation missed um, missed the entire boat when it came to policy compliance for their portfolios. And, I sat down with a couple of them and I said, look, you guys have got to manage your risk in some peril loss. And if you don't, you run the risk of basically putting your asset at risk. So we sat down and built programs for them. And then Tad was spinning up at the time, but I really didn't want to put a lot of effort into Tad. I just wanted it to be a small operating company and move around me, if that makes any sense. I was more or less wanting to play a little bit, not necessarily work so hard. So at that time, and that just kind of spun and took an ad hoc program I did with the U.S. government and turned it into the asset program that we have today, in managing assets nationwide and pushing that down the street. And it started clicking gears, and we did a few things differently. Right, about 3 years ago, things really changed for the company, and I did a loss in tech here in Texas, and it went from data loss to full payment by the carrier in 78 days, 12.2 million, and that was completion as well. So the conversation with the carrier came back to information flow and transparency, because we were so transparent and we moved information so fast, the carriers couldn't keep up with it. And they didn't understand why I was so transparent. And I said, well, there's zero excuses at this point. Right. So we're literally moving this in tandem collectively. And their forensic auditors came in at 15.5 million. I was at 12.2. And I said, I don't need your 15.5. I'm only asking for my 12.2. And then that constituted another, their executives flew down and actually sat with me and said, who are you and what are you doing? And that constituted the actuation to a lot of other carriers in the market to want to do business with. So, our program is built on not hurting the carriers, but it's also built on limiting the exposure on the business interruption for our commercial clients. That's the bigger number. So if you have a high rise that's fully leased out and it goes down, well, that business interruption is massive to the carrier. I don't want to hurt the carrier. I don't. They want my speed to market to put the real property back together and shorten the lifespan of that business interruption. And that's where the value became real. And that's what took us into AIG. So we do the assets for global for AIG. We do the Caribbean, South America. We also do it for Sedgwick. I mean, we basically go touch assets all over the world now, be under that model of just speed to market. And we simply go in, we simply do what we need to do, get them back online, get them sustainable. That's the quick triage, and then we do the reconstruction and finish in real time. We don't do this years down the street. So it happens quickly. The carriers are engaged. They like the program. They like the engagement. So, from that aspect, it has brought massive respect in the industry and brought us a massive, database of client.
So you mentioned your health, and obviously you were sick for a little bit of time. How are you doing now? What are you doing to stay healthy? You look great, by the way. What are you doing on a daily basis to keep your health in check? Because obviously, your personal life and your health will affect your business and your family. So what are you doing right now?
Well, I mean, one, my wife can't have any sugar, right? So there's no sugar
Okay,
in my house at all, which has been
that's a
but
good thing.
it is 100%. But mainly, I kind of go back and forth. I kind of lie to myself a little bit, but up before I got sick, I'm usually rowing 3,000 to 5,000 meters a day. I'm doing a lot of cardio. That's historically where I go with it. I'm 6'4", 230. And my fighting weight in the Middle East is 250. So, I'm actually smaller than I was in the Middle East. Also, not looking to be the Hulk. So I'm just looking to get by, and my clothes actually fit this time. So, um, from this, I just, what I put in my body actually matters to how my body responds. I'm very cognizant of what I'm eating. I'm very cognizant about my intake of a number of things. Cardio is absolutely up there, but I mean, I run hard. So, it's not uncommon for me. I'll hit each coast, every week. I'm on each coast damn near every week or just about each coast. And, yesterday we left DC at 7 o'clock at night. So it's been all day at DOS. I mean, it's hard to keep that manageable when you're on the road. But for me, it's all about the intake. It's all about the sleep patterns. I used to sleep 4 hours a night. Now I'm at least getting 7. I make myself do
good.
that. Last night I got interesting. So that's a rarity for me. But ultimately, no, it just comes down to cardio, keeping your life in check, keeping your body in check, knowing that, if you're sitting on the couch 24/7, you're going to end up couch potato, and that's going to have an impact on your health. So I choose to live at least another year. So, I'm going to take care of what I need to do.
That's great. Well, we're going to wrap it up. And by the way, thank you so much. You are such a wealth of knowledge and great story. We always wrap up with 3 questions. So I'm going to throw them at you and let you go. If you closed your eyes and you went back to your 16-year-old self, the 16-year-old TW Mock, and you're sitting on a couch and your eyes are closed, and now at your age, with your experience and all and everything you've been through, your journey, what would you tell your 16-year-old self now, being who you are now, that you can give advice to?
Buckle up. I tell him
Say
to
that.
buckle up.
Buckle up. Okay.
Yeah, I need to buckle up and put his crash helmet on. And it was my 16-year-old self thought I was going to Wall Street. My 16-year-old self thought that, money would life financially, meaning that I would inherit all of this from my stepfather or my mother, and at some level in my life would be just this grandeur adventure, and it would be a lot of playing. I didn't make expectations very well when I was 16, so I lived in a fantasy world. So get real, buckle up, and put your head down. I would have put my head down at 16, or even harder 18. Things would be a lot different now.
Okay. So it's your last day on earth, God forbid, and it's your last meal.
Mm-hmm.
And we're together, and you're gonna say, Ben, here's what we're eating. What are we eating? What's the last meal for you?
Probably ahi tuna.
Okay. And what are we drinking with the ahi tuna? Now remember, this is the last day, so we can do what we want. What are we drinking with that ahi tuna?
That's right. Probably Pellegrino. I mean,
Okay.
it's yeah. I mean, look, it's if it came down to last meal and that's all we were doing, I would be more. I'd be more disappointed in myself that I wasn't sitting there with my wife. No offense.
Well, no, she'd be with us, of course. That'd be a given.
Oh, yeah, no, that'd be it, man. I mean, it'd be whatever she wants to eat. I mean, that's really where it'd go if she was there, and
Okay.
she would ask me the same thing.
So in the studio I'm sitting in, we have a grand piano, we have a drum set behind me, there's 6 electric guitars. If you were sitting in the studio with me and you could have any musician or any band, it could be currently living, deceased, who would you want playing a song for us in this studio with you and me, and you could have anyone? Who would that be?
Man, that's interesting because I've got some interesting friends in that business. So, who would it be? I mean, man, I can't, can't get enough Chris Stapleton, but Teddy Swims be another one. But probably classic. It would be, love to see Stevie Ray playing with a Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So go ahead.
No, I said, wouldn't it? It would be awesome to see him, yeah, in a studio
Yeah.
like that. That'd be something else.
Oh, it sure would. That'd be fantastic. How do people follow you, learn about you? You're so inspirational. I think it's important that we share with everyone how to follow you and keep in touch, and because you keep inspiring a lot of people. What's the best way?
Man, I mean, Instagram, TX Hardwoods. I've had that forever. You can get little tidbits of my life. Of course, follow me on Facebook, TW Mock. I'm pretty social on that. There's a lot moving around on that. It's not really business related, but you kind of get a general idea of our life, of my life, and kind of looking at it. I don't drop too many inspirational quotes on that, but I do drop some bombs on there every now and then. So it's interesting. Um, but no, other than that, I know we're building out some social platform now. There's a big push for me to do this a lot more, and actually get a little more defined and refined with it, and step out there. I know there's a big pull right now for me to be in that space. I still find that interesting in itself, but no, I mean, to your point, man, TX Hardwoods or TW Mock on Facebook. I mean, I don't tweet. I don't get into that. I tweeted during an election that, had quite a few deputies following me. And not that I'm not in that program already, but they didn't like some of the stuff I was saying. So I just got off of Twitter. But no, other than that, man, it's usually Facebook, Instagram is probably the easiest way to get me.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank everyone today for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. Feel free to click the right hand button, subscribe on our YouTube channel. Feel free to go to benreinberg.com for a tremendous amount of content and value add knowledge to add value to your life. And feel free to keep watching our podcasts and keep learning. So, thank you so much. TW, thank you so much. It was good seeing you. By the way, I got to get one of those shirts or maybe like a t-shirt that's tagged so
I
I can start promoting.
I
And
will
by
get
the way, all the folks that work at
back.
Alliance, we need to align ourselves with you guys cuz that's a gap in our business I think we should have.
Wow. Well, I was at dinner with Chuck up in Denver a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, you know what? We should probably talk offline sometime, or I just come out and see you. Yeah, just kind of spend some time.
Absolutely. That would be a privilege. And anything I can do to help you, feel free to reach out to me. Maybe Michelle or anyone can get our contact information to you because I I've been in commercial real estate for 28 years. We own and manage a lot of different properties around the United States. A lot of the obviously in Texas. I'll actually be flying to Dallas this evening. I'm going to see Kenny
Oh,
Chesney tomorrow night, which I'm really excited. And
nice.
but at the end of the day, I'm sure you will teach me and my staff a lot, and we look forward to it. We look forward to how we can align ourselves. Also, I'd love to be able to refer business to you and Andre for people in my circles, saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing. You know, have you looked into this? If you know, with your properties, we're specialists in medical properties. That's what I focus on: medical and veterinarian properties. So." That's my niche and what I love. And I've done office, industrial, and retail, and built properties, and so we're raising a fund right now to buy more medical and veterinary properties. And so, love to learn more about what you do. And you're a real treat, I'll tell you. You got a lot of words of wisdom, and just keep sharing because you're going to help so many people with your story.
Well, I appreciate it, and likewise, you keep doing
Thank
what you're
you.
doing.
Thank
This
you.
you just don't have a platform. So um, here's a closing note for you. Kenny Chesney, Love of the Islands program. That's a big backbone of our company start was
Oh,
getting involved down in St. John
mm-hmm.
with Kenny and Bloomberg down there, and we end up donating, probably 80% of what we did down there to the locals in the program.
How
So,
hot is it down in Texas right now? What? Because now that I moved to California, I'm from Chicago. I just moved here recently. My family's here, and my kids. Uh, what are we looking at? High 90s and humidity? Is that what I should be expecting?
Yeah, it's not too bad. We've got it's currently 83, and
Okay.
we had a come through, so it's not horrible right now. It looks like, I'm just pulling up the forecast for you, but you're coming in tonight. Concert, it looks like it's going to be 88 with a low of
Okay.
71. It's going to be
Woof.
partly cloudy.
Love it.
You're all right.
Love it. Love it.
92. So gets hotter as the weekend goes on.
That's okay. I'm all for it. I love it. It's better than snow.
There you go. I'll agree.
Okay. Well, thanks again, and enjoy your weekend, and give your wife my best, and thanks for your time. I'm very grateful.
Likewise, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay. And
Thank you.
I'll have Michelle or Bria. I'd like to get your full contact information. I'll text you mine so we can keep in touch. Okay.
Oh, 100%. Got some swag
Okay.
coming
Thanks.
from you guys, so absolutely.
Oh, baby, I love that. I can't wait. I can't wait to wear it.
Yeah.
People are like, where'd you get that shirt? I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. So thanks
Yeah, don't worry
again.
about it.
I appreciate it.
All
Appreciate
right, man.
it.
Be good.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.